Hi everybody, how's it going? My name is Nick Machete, and I'm going to talk with you all today about car insurance liability. So, as I talked about before, a big part of my job is meeting with clients and discussing their insurance and helping them better understand how it all works. And it's very alarming to actually see how many people just don't understand how their insurance works. They pay the bills each month and they hope that they never have to ever use it. And I definitely hope that you never have to use it. But in your defense, you pay a lot of money for the insurance, so you definitely have a right to know how it's covered. So, for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to look at three parts of your liability insurance: just your general liability, property damage liability, and uninsured motorist liability coverage. So the intent is by the end of this, you have a much better understanding of how these coverages work. So we'll start right here with the basic liability. So for about 90% of insurance plans you're going to see, they're going to have a makeup similar to this. You're going to have a small number followed by a bigger number. And this works in the thousands. So what this first number is going to represent is 20,000, and this is going to represent 40,000. Pretty straightforward there, but no, most of you probably actually, well, what does this really mean? So what this is a per person, per accident outlook. So based off of this, let's say this is my coverage. My plan is going to pay out $20,000 per person, and it's going to pay out $40,000 for an entire accident. So let's say that I'm driving and I get involved in a car accident. It's my fault, and there's three people in the car. My plan will pay up to this $40,000. So if they incur $30,000 worth of damage, my plan is going to protect me. So the way that will work is it's going to pay the money out directly to the injured, so they can be brought whole as before the accident actually happened, and I don't have to face any ramifications on my end. It's pretty complex in the way that it actually gets paid out, but in terms of you and your protection, having the car insurance, you're going to be in great shape with that. So the one thing that is important to note is that if your limits are ever exhausted, meaning that the damage is greater than what you have here, you do run the risk of losing your assets and having your wages be garnished. So let's say instead of $30,000 damage, it's actually $60,000. My plan's only going to pay out 40, which pretty much means that I am on the hook for $20,000. So I have to pull that out either from a bank account or out of thin air. If not, I run the risk of potentially losing my house or having my wages be garnished until that money gets paid out. So it's very important coverage to understand. We're going to take a look here at the property damage coverage, which is going to work in a pretty similar facet. You're going to have a number here. It's going to work in the thousands. So here we would have 50,000, and this is just going to cover property that is damaged as a result of an accident. So let's say I'm driving and I injure, not necessarily injure, but I damage a car and it's, let's say, $20,000 worth of damage. My plan will pay up to the 50,000. So I wouldn't necessarily have to worry, but a fun fact is actually a telephone pole is $10,000 to repair. So if you think about it, if you for whatever reason hit multiple cars and they veered off and a couple telephone poles go down, this can get pretty expensive really fast. So another thing, just like the liability, just something to keep in mind and just have that understanding of how it works. It's really going to be important. Lastly, we're going to wrap up with uninsured coverage. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking, what is this? Why do we need to have it if people are required to have insurance? So the state of Connecticut actually reports that 12% of their drivers don't have insurance. So that's pretty crazy. The national average is 14, so a little bit under there, but still it's pretty alarming. Also, the state of New Hampshire doesn't even require insurance. So we're in a bit of an area here where you could very much run the risk of encountering someone who doesn't have insurance. And it's going to work really similar to what we've been doing with those limits. We're going to have a smaller number followed by a bigger number. It's going to work in the thousands. So here we have 25,000 per individual, 50,000 for an entire accident. So we're just going to do one example here. So let's say I am injured and I have $22,000 worth of medical bills, lost wages in general. To bring me whole again, I need $22,000. And the person's from New Hampshire and they just don't have insurance. My plan is going to protect me up to $25,000. So this is really meant for you to have protection if all else fails. So it's a really great coverage to have. And kind of the backstory of it, just you never know. You may encounter someone who just doesn't have insurance. Maybe their insurance canceled and they didn't know it canceled. That does happen. So it's great to see that there is coverage implemented to help protect you. So one thing that the state of Connecticut is currently doing is they're looking at raising their liability standards. So every state is going to have a bare minimum that you need to carry. So in Connecticut, it is currently 2040, and they're looking to raise it to 2550. Now this is being reported by Todd Hero of NBC Connecticut, and the reason why they're looking into it is simply because things have gotten so much more expensive. These limits were created in the 50s and 60s. So at the time, that was a ton of money. You probably would never even have to worry about that being exhausted. When you think about it, it'd have to be a pretty insane loss. But nowadays, with how much medical expenses have gone up, how much lawyer fees have gone up, and just vehicles in general, they're just more expensive. They cost more to replace and repair. It's just, we're not having any decreases anymore, only increases. So the state is saying, let's make these limits better just so our drivers are more protected. So really what that equates to is the state is looking out for all of our well-beings, which is awesome because it's nice to see that. So with that, that's really going to conclude everything I have about the basic liability. I hope now that you're able to understand how that coverage works, and hopefully you're able to pull out your insurance policies and look over them and have a little bit of a better understanding. The one thing that I do want to preface is if you do have questions, probably reach out to a licensed insurance advisor to discuss further questions. Really important, what we do see happen is people will ask other people, and if the information's incorrect, then you could potentially be at risk. So always just look to consult a licensed insurance advisor. So with that, thank you all for listening. I hope you found some value in this and you have a great evening.